Welcome to the Sage Advice Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and today's episode is cut from another podcast of which I am the co-host, The Soul of Enterprise, which is also sponsored by Sage. The Soul of Enterprise is dedicated to belief that business has a spiritual, though not necessarily religious, component. I hope you enjoy this excerpt. If you do, please visit www.thesoulofenterprise.com for more. And I am joined today on the Soul of Enterprise by Jody Grunden. Ron, unfortunately, has not been able to make it today because he's injured his back, but hopefully he will be back next week and up and running as quickly as possible. Jody, I wanted to turn your attention to something that I've noticed on your website. You talked about the fact that you offer flat fee pricing, but one of the things that I think is fairly unique to what you do is that your pricing is done on a weekly basis, not monthly. It's done on a weekly basis, and you also offer choices. But let's take the first one first. I think that's maybe a bit more interesting to me, anyway. Why weekly?
Yeah, why weekly? That was more of a selfish need that we had. When we started the company out, we bootstrapped it completely. I didn't come from money, didn't have a lot of cash in the bank to allow an accounts receivable. So it was one of those deals the first 2 years almost put me out of business, not because not only my pricing was off, but my accounts receivable was getting pretty big, and I just didn't have the wherewithal, or I could basically maintain that. So I thought, well, what can we do to solve this issue? And the easiest issue was, why don't we get money before we actually do the work? And we thought, well, this could be a kind of an interesting deal. And so we thought, well, right, most of our clients were monthly anyways, and we thought, you know what, most of the clients were actually loved our service so much because it was something that they just never had, that that level, that they wanted to meet more frequently, and so they wanted to meet on a weekly basis. And so we start shifting our meeting cadence to weekly, but in the same regard, we thought, well, let's go ahead and get our payments up front. And so we automatically zap their account every Monday. So we don't have an accounts receivable. So I think we'll be a $7 million accounting firm this year with zero accounts receivable, which is pretty cool. And that all started just because at that point I had to solve a problem. I could not figure out how to stay in business with an accounts receivable. I couldn't be the bank, and so that's when we went to a weekly automatic ACH.
And you have three distinct categories. One you call transactional, controller, and then virtual CFO, priced as of, let's say, June 12th, 2020 at $750 a week, $1,000 a week, and then $1,500 a week. And talk to me a little bit about how you got to those prices for those three distinct levels.
Yeah, so the levels are that what's quoted there on the website are the average prices. And so when we actually meet with a client, we try to figure out exactly the client's needs in a 1 hour web call. So what we do is we'll meet with the client, and going through the sales approach with the client, we figure out what they're looking for, why they're coming to us. And then on the second half of the sales, we actually pull out basically a pricing calculator, and we walk through our pricing structure completely with the client at that point. And the client decides at that time what they want. Do they want us to They want the virtual CFO where everything's unlimited, meetings on a weekly cadence, or do they want more of a lighter touch where it's more restricted? We're meeting once a month instead, maybe twice a month. Or do they just simply want historical financial statements, what traditionally that an accountant would provide? Because with our virtual CFO and our controller, the big distinction there is that we provide forecasting with it. And so our meetings aren't talking, well, we'll provide the financial statement, but that's only maybe 15 minutes of the hour meeting that we're meeting with the client, going through the financials with them. The rest of the 45 minutes, we're talking about forecasting, dynamic forecasting, what happened this month and how is that impacting the balance sheet, 3 or 4 months from now. What is things now? What's your balance now look at December 31st? Are you going to have that cash reserve that you need or that we're striving to get in October, or is it going to hit more towards November? Or are we going to be in such a bad situation that we may have to borrow line of credit in October? So those are the types of conversations that we're having with clients on a regular weekly basis in the event it's a virtual CFO, or more on a monthly basis if it's more of a controller. And so again, the controller is more reactive because you're really meeting with them once a month. And a lot of times you find out a lot of things during that call that maybe If you were a CFO, you would have heard about it on a regular basis because you're in all the leadership meetings weekly with the clients at that CFO level. So CFO is more strategic on the virtual CFO, and the controller is more reactive.
For more Sage advice, visit and subscribe at sageadvicepodcast.com.